A lot of Albertans are trying to figure out what exactly is going on with this whole Skybox scandal and the UCP government. We're going to try to make a little bit of sense of that in as quickly amount of time as we can. To start with, if we want to try to make sense about what is going on with all of this, we have to go all the way back to November 1st when Danielle Smith first appeared on an interview with Ryan Jesperson on Real Talk with Ryan Jesperson.
I heard that you were actually prohibited from attending, that the province's ethics commissioner said that you could not be there. Is that true?
I have to tell you, I want to be respectful of the position, but there are certain things that we have been told are that I cannot do. For instance, during the stampede, I was told I could only be in the suites for 20 minutes at a time. When I receive ribbon skirts as a matter of protocol, it's been questioned whether I'm allowed to keep them. They're probably only valued at $40. I just have to say that I think that there are some tweaks we may need so that we are able to go to that. I think the issue was whether, I don't want to go to a game and then only be able to stay in a suite for 20 minutes, right? So I declined, but if we can address some of those issues, I think most people expect that as a matter of course, as premier or as a minister, you have to do some of these things because it's such a great celebration of everything we have in Alberta. Yeah. So we have to make some changes to the rules. And I just said I didn't think I'd be able to get ethics commissioner approval on that. But to the credit of Explore Edmonton, because I spoke with them yesterday, they did a lot of work with the ethics commissioner to get a number of tickets that I think were valued at $170 each. And so they were below the $200 limit. So a number of my colleagues were able to go. But you know what? I just, I want to stay within the rules, but sometimes if the rules haven't kept up with where we find ourselves today, we may have to adjust them.
Yeah, I think
all I would say is we have to solve this before the arena opens down south, because I have been doing some lobbying that the very first game has to be Battle of Alberta. So if that's going to be in the 26-27 season, then I certainly want to be in the stands.
So basically what Smith was saying in that Jespo clip is that she felt that it was unfair that she wasn't allowed to hang out in elite owners' skyboxes for as long as she wanted to. Apparently she didn't have any concerns about the fact that being in those sorts of environments with extremely wealthy people might cause some people to be concerned about the fact that those politicians could very easily be influenced by all of those money and benefits. And she said she was going to make some changes, which she did. On November 9th of 2023, the UCP introduced Bill 8. And part of what Bill 8 did is it changed the amount of money that MLAs could receive when it comes to the value of gifts, but it also changed pieces in regards to how MLAs could accept tickets. So the easiest way to talk about Bill 8 has to do with probably how things were before Bill 8 and how things were after Bill 8. Before Bill 8, it was pretty straightforward. MLAs could accept gifts of up to $200. That's it. They could accept gifts valued at up to $200. Bill 8 changed that and said that MLAs could now accept gifts that were valued up to $500. But Bill 8 also made some big changes in regards to how MLAs and ministers and the premier could accept the gift of tickets to events. It carved out a whole separate section and made some pretty big changes to the rules and those areas as well. To start with, any UCP MLA, or any MLA for that matter, could now accept a ticket that was valued up to $250 with no reporting whatsoever. They could just accept that, and that was that. If it was between $250 to $1,000, then they had to accept that gift, but also keep track of who gave it to them and submit that to the ethics commissioner in an annual report. If it's anything over $1,000, then it would have to be provided to the ethics commissioner within 60 days. Which brings us to the hockey playoffs, because as was reported in the Globe and Mail, Danielle Smith attended a playoff game in Vancouver at the invitation of a board member from an organization called Invest Alberta. Now, this was in one of those big fancy skyboxes, and it gets a little complicated because Invest Alberta is actually what's called a crown corporation, or it's an organization or a corporation that's literally owned by the government. And because it's owned by the government, the premier of the province gets to choose who they're appointing to the board of directors for that organization. And to get to the question you're probably thinking of next, did Danielle Smith appoint this particular board member to the board of directors for Invest Alberta? She absolutely did. Back in November of 2023, right after the whole Bill 8 process had started up, she absolutely appointed this individual to the board of directors for Invest Alberta. So Danielle Smith was in effect accepting an incredibly expensive gift from one of her own employees. But as the Globe and Mail reported as well, there's at least one UCP minister and many more who are alleged to have attended playoff games in the Skybox of one Sam Maraish. Now, Sam Maraish is the Edmonton businessman who was the importer of the Turkish Tylenol, or the Atabay Tylenol, or what we like to call it here, the Tylenol. That was a project that cost Albertans upwards of $100 million to only receive 1.5 million bottles. And of those 1.5 million bottles, only 9,000 bottles ever made it to hospitals, and only about 5,000 ever made it to pharmacies for private sale before AHS actually discontinued their use because it clogged the feeding tubes of babies in the NICU. Now, the minister who admits to attending the playoff games as a guest of Sam Maraish is one Nathan Neudorf. He admitted to attending those playoff games, and that's led to journalists asking other ministers and other MLAs if they attended the playoffs and who they were guests of, which led to this exchange on July 23rd.
Yesterday, the Premier had disclosed she's gone to 3 hockey games as a guest of others, and she had said that it's up to staff and ministers to disclose their own information. So I'm wondering how many games you went to and who hosted you.
One game hosted by the Edmonton Oilers.
Now, in addition to that, Danielle Smith admitted in a column with Rick Bell that she actually attended a playoff game as a guest of the Edmonton Oilers as well. Which doesn't sound super bad, but it actually is incredibly bad. Because according to the Alberta Lobbyist Registry, the Oilers are currently lobbying the Premier's office, Mike Ellis's ministry, and many other ministries to try to get the government to do things that they want them to do. And they gifted the Premier and at least Mike Ellis playoff tickets worth God only knows how much, which is a huge conflict of interest to anybody who has any kind of an idea what a conflict of interest can and should be. Except everything that I've just talked about would have been wildly illegal and a huge breach of the Conflict of Interest Act if the UCP hadn't changed the rules 6 months ago.